The medical field is not the only one to blame. I mean, I think I had a lot of onus on the medical field, and I still do. I still do. Um, but more so, back when I first started working with CPEG women, and of course going through my own situation. But I've been working now with CPEG for about 8 years, and it's not just the medical field that is to blame. Of course, a lot of onus is on the medical field. The reason why our bodies are in the state that it is, when we are going through a CPEG, and what are the so the domino effect and the impacted things that occur, you know, as a result of unavoidable or avoidable traumas, or things that the medical field gave to us or prescribed to us, or did to us, and out of our ignorance, out of our reliance on them, that we followed through on those things. But it also could be our own, negligence and lack of care in our health. And so, of course, the medical field has a responsibility towards people, and of course, there is an enormous amount of corruption in the medical field. And of course, there needs to be accountability there. I am not making any excuses whatsoever. I have spoken extensively on the colonialist origins of the medical field and its brutal beginnings, and that were essentially built on the crushed lives and families and blood, sweat, and tears of well, essentially women, and then for centuries, mostly women of color. Okay, so I've already spoken on this extensively on other YouTube videos and and I've also written about it on other platforms. I am not making any excuses for the medical field, but the medical field is not the only one to blame. Okay, in my 8 years, I've basically gotten to the bottom of what causes CPEG, and basically, like, on a physiological level, that of course has deep spiritual and mental and psychological components, and of course those are often ongoing, and of course the whole thing is ongoing. The discoveries of the whole thing is ongoing, but basically I've gotten down to the bottom of what causes it, and why the body goes into this reaction over pregnancy, etc. And I have to say, like, overall, like, women going through CPEG have no desire to take the reins or responsibility of their own health. That's not to say there aren't some courageous ones that do, but in my experience, women in North America at large, and in the Western world at large, they basically want the medical field. They'll blame the medical field, you know, for not giving them, a solution to the problem. But, they rely on the medical field and desire so intently for the medical field to do something about, their CPEG situation, that they'll just ignore everything else. They'll continue to eat crappy food. They'll continue to, take medications, and not educate themselves about that, medically and alternative and traditional. Like, they won't go through the process. And I understand that there are a lot of women going through this, that don't have the opportunity to have more education on that front, on health or anything else, or education or anything else. And there are a lot of women like that. But On the other hand, when I point them in that direction, there is a refusal. Guys, it's been almost a decade, and there is a refusal, an overall refusal to take the reins on your own health. I am routinely treated terribly, like horrifically, by CPEG women in North America. They don't. It's astounding. It's astounding how little women in North America take responsibility for their own lives. Everybody else has to fix it for them. And I understand that this is the training. This is the medicalized training. This is the modernistic view of life, like that everybody else is culpable, for my problems. And this individualistic mentality, in which I am a floating island and I can do whatever I want, whether it's emotionally or platonically or romantically or sexually. Like, I can do whatever I want and there's no consequences, and there's a solution, there's a procedure, there's a pill, there's someone to blame for everything, right? The medical field is not just to blame. Trust me, okay? Trust me on this. I have been in the trenches with this for many, many years now. And actually, overall, for a handful who are willing to take responsibility, like full responsibility, like, for their own, or at least grow, to become fully accountable and fully responsible. Like, overall, first of all, CPEG, the cryptic pregnancy extended gestation experience, and going through that in our Western society is extremely, it can be extremely traumatizing. The ostracization, and the mental and emotional, and even medical abuse and violence against women going through this, including myself. I was basically sent to die. Okay, I later learned that they did see the baby in the ultrasound. The midwives lied, and they suspected that I had an ectopic pregnancy. And so, to cover their behinds, okay, to cover their culpable, guilty behinds, they just wrote a prescription for me to go see a doctor next door at the hospital. I was at the birth center. They just wrote a prescription for me to go see a doctor. Okay? No, they didn't tell me that they suspected an ectopic pregnancy. I had to figure that out through getting my medical records 3 years later. Okay? They sent me to die. You can die from an unaddressed ectopic pregnancy. My daughter was not ectopic. She was just CPEG. In my experience, there's just a lot of self-involvement and a lot of bitterness and a lot of, whining and complaining in woman society of North America. They don't want to take responsibility for their lifestyle. Okay, do you know how many women I have worked with going through CPEG who have no idea who the father is? Like, it could be one of multiple men. This is very common in these situations, and it never dawns on them that sleeping around like that, and a lot of times there is drugs and alcohol involved. But no, just exposing yourself again and again and again in this intimate way to people who don't care about you, often men who are emotionally and, God forbid, physically violent, especially in this intimate way, that often you don't remember because you're under the influence. It doesn't dawn on any of these women that this is what's causing the essentially neurogenic and psychogenic and other shock to their systems. Okay, that then their system is reacting to something as profoundly shifting in their at the center of their being, like profoundly transformative at the center of their being as pregnancy. Their body's reacting to this shift in a hyper adaptive way, and they don't it doesn't even dawn on them that that their lifestyle or what they've been doing in the past, to their bodies, to their minds, to their emotions has anything to do with what they're going through now. And when I try to point them in that direction, then I'm horrifically disrespected more times than not. I've lost count of how many women who have stood me up, um, complained that they had to pay something, my low fee for helping them. Like, I've lost count. Okay, so the medical field is not just to blame. Okay, the amount of complaining and whining and lack of accountability in North American women, is a central part of this problem. And I'm here to tell you that. I've been in the trenches for long enough to know that.